For Redlands, today sunny with a high of 78. And for Palm Springs, sunny with a high of 82. I'm David Duguay for Smart Talk 1490 KMET.
Hello, listeners. This is Christopher from The Christopher Show. Hey, if you missed one of our shows here at KMET, don't worry about it. You can go to our webpage, and that's KMET1490am.com. Go to the homepage, click on the SoundCloud tab, and hear any show anytime you want.
The Inner Voice Show is a dialogue between the host and the listeners about their relationships. This show is not an attempt to assess, diagnose, or treat any mental health or illness condition. Please consult your physician, psychiatrist, or psychotherapist for personal matters.
Inner Voice. A heartfelt chat with Dr. Foojan.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Inner Voice Show. I'm Dr. Foojan Zeine, and I have Sean in studio. This is the show about what matters most in life: our mind, our thoughts, feelings, emotions, actions, relationships, and our fulfillment in this beautiful journey of life. Now, in this show, I'll bring you the latest research and explanation of self-esteem from the positive psychology perspective. And then I will speak to Dr. Andrea Pennington, an author, speaker, visionary, and integrative physician, acupuncturist, meditation teacher, and sex educator. She's amazing. And I'm going to tell you about the tip of the week. So this week, I have been really witnessing a lot of anger and rage between couples who come to my office in their marriages and in their intimate relationships. It's interesting how one relationship, the one and only relationship that requires intimacy, sensuality, and sexuality, which can only grow in really a safe environment, people allow themselves to kind of unleash their utmost toxic judgment and behaviors. Have you noticed that? Although anger is a very normal and important feeling to have expressed, what happens with us when we actually express it in an intimate relationship as an attack to our mate creates a long-lasting effect, which at times it's irreversible. Now, the core connection of an intimate relationship is the attraction. That is why many relationships end. They lose attraction, although they might still love each other as a friend or a family member. Now, so I ask you, when you are unleashing your anger in that way, as an attack to your mate, how attractive do you really think you are? You're not, let me tell you. Anger, when expressed inappropriately, breaks the feeling of safety and ultimately the feeling of love. It is important to honor your anger and share it with your mate in a format that you can be heard for the point that you're actually angry about and to negotiate what you want. When you choose to do it in an attacking format, your partner will lose listening for you. Have you ever tried listening compassionately to someone who's actually attacking you? Remember, exactly, this is the way that your partner also feels. They close it. They close their ears because they need to protect themselves against you and against your attack at that moment. You're not safe at that moment. So you won't be heard, seen, or cared for. You will create separation, I promise you. Now take care of yourself. Take care of your emotions and relationships, and most of all, intimacy, by taking responsibility for taking care of your own emotion and then sharing it in a safe manner with a respect to yourself and your mate and your relationship. I promise you, you will be heard and your anger will subside that way and the changes will happen for the future. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with research about self-esteem.
Hello, I'm Dr. Foojan, and I have great news for you. I'm offering a special time-limited offer to anyone who's interested in online therapy or coaching sessions. I've developed the awareness integration model, which allows in only 12 weeks to raise your self-esteem and confidence and let go of your thoughts and emotions that produce depression and anxiety for you. So call today to schedule your online session and save $600. Call me today at 818-648-2140. That's 818-648-2140. Or go to www.foojan.com.
So, let me tell you about the research. Psychologists explain self-esteem from a positive psychology approach. Believe in yourself. That is the message that we encounter constantly in books, television shows, superhero comics, and common myths and legends. Yes, we do. We know that believing in yourself and accepting yourself for who you are is an important factor in success, relationships, and happiness, and that self-esteem plays an important role in living a flourishing life. Now, it provides us with belief in our abilities and the motivation to carry them out, ultimately reaching fulfillment as we navigate life with a positive outlook. Various studies have confirmed that self-esteem has a direct relationship with our overall well-being, and we would do well to keep this fact in mind, both for ourselves and for those around us, particularly the developing children we interact with. Now, self-esteem refers to a person's overall sense of his or her value or worth. It can be considered a sort of measure of how much a person values, approves, and appreciates, prizes, or likes himself or herself. According to self-esteem expert Morris Rosenberg, self-esteem is quite simply one's attitude toward oneself. He describes it as an unfavorable or a favorable attitude toward self. Various factors believed in to influence our self-esteem, including genetics, personality, life expectancies, age, health, thoughts, our social circumstances, and the reactions to others, and the way we compare ourselves to others. So an important note is that self-esteem is not fixed. It is malleable and measurable, meaning we can test for it and improve upon it. So self-esteem is not self-concept, although self-esteem may be a part of self-concept, but self-concept is the perception that we have of ourselves, our answer when we ask ourselves, who am I? It is knowing about one's own tendencies, thoughts, preferences, hobbies, skills, and the area of weaknesses. Put simply, the awareness of who we are is our concept of ourselves. So self-image is similar to self-concept in that it is all about how you see yourself. Instead of being based on reality, however, it can be based on false and inaccurate thoughts about ourselves. I know I've told a lot of my clients to just go ahead and ask 25 or 10 or to 25 people around them, families, people who work with them, friends, to actually tell them what they see in them. And maybe in that way, their self-image can be closer to reality. Can be very far. I've had people who are amazing people who have achieved a lot, and their self-image is very, very low. And they get really boosted reality when they ask others. That's what we do with reality check. Self-esteem is a similar concept to self-worth with a little bit of a small twist, although it's an important twist and a difference. Self-esteem is what we think, feel, and believe about ourselves, while self-worth is the more global recognition that we are valuable human beings just as who we are. And that's how we're worthy, and we're worthy of love. Self-esteem is not self-confidence. Self-confidence is about your trust in yourself and your ability to deal with challenges, solve problems, and engage successfully with the world. Self-confidence is based more on an external measures of success and value than an internal measure that contributes to self-esteem. One can have high self-confidence, particularly in a certain area or field, but still lack a healthy sense of overall value or self esteem. Similar to self confidence, self efficacy is also related to self esteem, but not a proxy for it. So, self efficacy refers to the belief in one's ability to succeed in one certain task. You could have high self efficacy when you're playing basketball, but low self efficacy when you're doing math in the class. So, unlike self esteem, self efficacy is more specific rather than global, and it is based on external success rather than internal worth. Finally, self esteem is also not self compassion. Self compassion centers on how we relate to ourselves rather than how we judge or perceive ourselves. Being self compassionate means we are kind and forgiving and to ourselves, and that we avoid being harsh or overly critical of ourselves. Self compassion can lead us to a healthy sense of self esteem, but is not in and out of itself a self esteem. So, why am I telling you all this? Because we're going to actually talk to Dr. Andrea Pennington, who's an author, speaker, visionary, and an integrative physician. And she's an acupuncturist also, a meditation teacher, and a sex educator. She is the author of I Love You, Me, which was published in 2017, and The Pennington Plan, which was published in 2004. She was co-authored the international bestseller, Heart to Heart, The Path to Wellness, as well as co-author of Resilience Through Yoga and Meditation. Dr. Pennington is a TEDx speaker and a multiple speaker on topics such as Become Who You Are, and another one by the topic of resilience through meditation. She's been featured on the Discovery Channel, TLC, CNN, The Dr. Oz Show, and more and more. Now, you can also find her in AndreaPennington.com. The reason I wanted to talk to you about self-esteem before we actually talk to Dr. Pennington is to also get to know how you can raise that. She has books that tells you about it. And it's important for you to be able to raise your self-esteem as soon as possible, as soon as you relate to it and see that you don't have it. You can by different types of exercises, by definitely going to coaching and going to therapy. It is the way that you think about yourself, feel about yourself. And many times there is a voice inside your own head, which is very, very critical. And we get those voices internalized because of the way that we were raised, in the way that our parents actually have raised us and disciplined us. And the society that was around us, whether it was our family of origin, the parents, or grandparents, or teachers that were there, they keep coming back and disciplining us and letting us know who we are. And we took that image, internalized it, and then we thought about ourselves from that perspective. The lower it is, the more problems that gets created. The higher level of anxiety and depression will be there. So it is so important for you to take care of your self-esteem when you see and you hear and you feel it, knowing that it's just not there. Many people have a lot of self-confidence and they learn how to create tasks, and underneath it, behind the task, they kind of hide themselves because they figure if I'm great at doing one thing, then it's going to be okay that I can actually raise. But as we go, become older, any new thing that happens, if we're not really solid from inside, it shakes us. It just pulls us down. And therefore, it is so important for you to take care of yourself, because the foundation of who you are as you go outside and meet with others and try to create abilities for yourself and go forward is really your self-esteem. And the higher that is, the higher level of life satisfaction and the higher level of happiness that you're going to actually feel. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with Dr. Andrea Pennington.
Join the conversation every Monday afternoon at 3 p.m. Pacific for Inner Voice Heartfelt Chat with Dr. Foojan. Dr. Foojan is a radio and TV host, international speaker, psychotherapist, life coach, and the author of Life Reset, The Awareness Path to Create the Life You Want. She brings you the latest research and interviews with experts in the field of cognitive sciences. Anyone who loves to grow and create growth for humanity gets a voice on this call-in show. Inner Voice Heartfelt Chat with Dr. Foojan. Monday afternoons at 3 p.m. Pacific on Smart Talk KMET 1490 AM and on KMET1490am.com.
Have you ever wished you could just wake up one day, reach across your nightstand, and hit the life reset button? Let's face it, the struggles and frustrations of everyday life leave millions of women and men around the globe yearning for a new way. And the new way is right here in Life Reset, the awareness integration path to create the life you want by Dr. Foojan Zeine. You can get it now at Foojan.com or Amazon.com. Life Reset, the awareness integration path to create the life you want. You deserve it. Hello, I'm Dr. Foojan, and I have great news for you. I'm offering a special time-limited offer to anyone who's interested in online therapy or coaching sessions. I've developed the awareness integration model, which allows in only 12 weeks to raise your self-esteem and confidence and let go of your thoughts and emotions that produce depression and anxiety for you. So call today to schedule your online session and save $600. Call me today at 818-648-2140. That's 818-648-2140. Or go to www.foojan.com.
Well, Dr. Andrea Pennington, it is so nice to have you with me. I have missed you. I met you in India when we went for a retreat, and I really felt connected to you, and it's a great honor to have you on my show. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Foojan. It is a pleasure to be reconnected. Yes, we are kindred spirits, and what we experienced in India was so magical. So I'm really honored and grateful to be on your show.
So I know you're an integrative physician, an acupuncturist, and a meditation teacher, and a conscious communication specialist. Oh my God, like you are amazing. Now, first of all, please tell me, I think everybody knows the other parts, but what is a conscious communication specialist?
Well, my experience in working in the media, I've worked in broadcast media like TV and internet and radio for 20 years. And part of my journey was not very conscious. I'll be honest. I was just a hired doc in the box when I worked at Discovery Channel as the medical director. And, you know, doing the news where you have a script and you're doing research like you already do, it's easy to fall into a routine where you're just reading a script. I got to a point in my own journey where I realized there was so much more I wanted to share about the mind-body connection, the stuff that you're an expert in about really transforming our lives, where you don't need medicines and surgery necessarily as your first line of treatment. And it was in my own kind of spiritual journey and spiritual awakening that I realized we need to be conscious about how we communicate, especially in the media as media professionals, but of course in our everyday lives. And over the last few years, I've built up a branding and media production agency, and everything I do is based on being authentic and being conscious about our communication. So that's where that weird term came from.
Okay, great. So what I'm hearing from you is that there's a consciousness as you are being present to yourself and the other person and what is needed in the world. And that's what gets connected, that consciousness of awareness of who you are, allowing all of you to be present
and with whomever you're working, or globally you're working with the world and bringing it to the audience in the world to really seek to connect and see what is it that they're needing. Is that what I'm getting?
Absolutely. It works both ways. It's what does my audience need, whether I'm on stage or on air or on TV. But for me personally, it was also, what do I really need? Because a lot of, again, I was reading scripts. I was doing what I was told as a good, spokesperson. And I feel like the more that we can really be honest and in full integrity, then we can do a lot greater healing in our relationships. First, the relationship with ourselves, and then with other people and with the world.
And you talk about full integrity. I know that your latest book is I Love You, Me. That is about you, the exploration of your personal journey and bringing your integration first and then sharing it with the world. Tell me a little bit about that.
It's been a circuitous journey, as you know. I mean, of course, there are very few of us humans who just, have this perfect rosy trajectory. My life started off with a bit of turmoil internally for me, which manifested as depression. I really suffered a lot for nearly 2 decades with low, depressed moods. But I just was told, you suck it up, you push forth, you'll find your happy day someday. So I was, like so many people, looking for my happiness outside of me. So it was like, what is that next goal I could achieve? Whether it was when I was in school, like running track or being in the spelling bee, it was always some outward achievement. And then as I became a medical doctor and opened my practice, it was like, okay, I'll be happy when, we get to this level of success or this achievement. And again, it was really while working at Discovery Channel, where I had published my first book. I had just been on the Oprah show. I had people coming to my medical center from all over, and I was miserable. And when I really sat in the darkness of my rock bottom of depression, I realized I didn't love myself. I didn't have those words necessarily, but there was this self-loathing. I just didn't feel like I was good enough, smart enough, whatever enough. And it was through a series of events, which maybe we'll get into, that I really had a spiritual awakening to really come to know who I really am, who I believe we really are. And I never anticipated that I would share that with the world. I just assumed, okay, now I feel better. I'm healed of this depressive stuff. But I started to recognize the same patterns in other people. Now, for me, as I mentioned, my sense of not being at peace with myself manifested in depression and anxiety. As I became a doctor, I noticed that some people, it would manifest differently. If they weren't at peace with whatever was in their past, or having a firm foundation of self-acceptance and self-awareness, it didn't matter how many needles I put into them with acupuncture, or what psychotherapy or surgery or treatment or diet program. I saw many people would fall into new patterns, addictive patterns, eating disorders, shopping, relationship hopping. So we seek to medicate our internal dis-ease in a number of different ways. And it was when I realized I just opened up to one person about my experience with depression and postpartum depression. And the look of relief, I know you've seen this a million times in your practice, the look of relief on her face when she realized, you mean I'm not alone? You mean you, who look like you have it all put together, you suffered as well? And it wasn't something that I just took out just to say, hey, cheer up. It was like, hey, we're two humans on this path. And sometimes life is pretty crappy. And yes, we do have these really dark times. And it was in that opening of sharing my vulnerability that I realized there's so much power in that. And right. Eventually I shared even more.
I share with you the same conversations where, I had promised myself by age 30, I'm going to get my house, I'm going to have my business, I'm going to do all of that. And I did by age 28. So I actually met my milestone 2 years earlier. And the same conversation of there is no satisfaction, and I'm depressed, and I think I'm mildly, chronically kind of depressed all my life, due to many of the issues of abuse, parents, divorce, and everything and immigration at age 12. So there's a different element for each one of us that shows up at that moment, about who am I and what is it that I'm actually holding on to, where in some sense, Andrea, it's more like I just have to survive. Yeah. And how do I know how to survive is take on what the society tells me to be successful. So I'll just take those steps of being successful as the society tells me that I have to be. And, we'll make it. Like you have made it in such an amazing way. And then looking back and say, were those my goals? Did I do it appropriately with all of me? And it isn't that it wasn't my goal. It's just like you said, I wasn't conscious while I was going toward it. I was moving toward it just because I was going to be successful. Tell me about your journey in finding yourself, and what do you call self-love?
Well, it starts off with self-identity. You just said it. It's like, really, who am I? And I said this in my TEDx. I say it to everyone. If you strip away all of the masks and all of the roles that you play, mother, CEO, wife, daughter, immigrant, whatever, survivor, when you strip all of that away, your name, your ethnicity, all of it, who are you? And when I started to really look at, well, I'm not my body, because I know that I have all sorts of dreamy, experiences of consciousness and soul, I eventually really had to realize I didn't know who I was. And it was on a vacation here to the south of France. I decided at the height of my fame, if you want to call it that, there was a moment when many people around the United States were seeing me on TV every day. Because with the Discovery Channel, we were in 90 million homes across America, and Discovery Health Channel has now become the Oprah Winfrey Network. But at that time, we were in about 90 million homes. I was anchoring the news, and I was also hosting documentaries. So you could see me on TV multiple times a day. So for a lot of people, especially the moms who were home with kids, they would turn on Discovery Health Channel because we had great programming. And it got to the point, though, that I started being recognized in the street. But you've been with me. I'm not going to say what your perception of me is, but you've seen me. I'm not a stuffy, boring, always buttoned up, know-it-all doctor.
Oh, my God. No, not at all.
But that was the persona that I had to fulfill because we were in Washington, D.C. It was like a very news-oriented. So the brand that we had created, I realized they're looking at me on the street as if that's me. That's not me. Like I have all these ideas about how we can really advance healthcare and well-being and all of that. So I had this opportunity to come to Europe. I was on vacation and I said, okay, nobody over here in Europe was getting the Discovery Health Channel at that time. So nobody would know who I was. And I said, this time I'm going as Drea, the artist. And you know how the law of attraction works. If you see it and say it. I was like, but the weirdest thing happened. Sure enough, people were coming up to me and I knew they couldn't know me because I was over here in Europe. I'm like, how are they knowing? And I met people on the airplane and people asking me, oh, can I get you this? Getting like I was some sort of a star. And it was in Saint-Tropez, here on the French Riviera, that I told someone that, I sing jazz. And this guy said, oh, well, I know the DJ of like the hottest club here. I'm going to get you in and you're going to go up there and sing. And I wasn't going to back down because I was like, yes, I'm an artist. And sure enough, I did. I mean, Foojan, I was like on the mic, just letting it go. And the crowd was going wild. The music, I mean, it was utter bliss.
Wow.
I felt like, oh my God, they get me. They get the real me.
It's almost like you let you out.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when I got back to my hotel in Cannes, I woke up the next morning like, what just happened? And that's when it hit me. Who am I? Like
Right.
back home, they think I'm this boring Dr. Andrea. But here, how do they know that this is me? It's like, so that's when it hit me like, oh no, in like 3 days' time, I got to go back to that. And
Right.
that's when this darkness, this depression just mounted like with a ferocity I've never seen. And I flung myself onto the bed, just crying out to God. And to be honest, Foojan, I knew I couldn't go on living like that. And I literally...
It's almost like you let the genie out and then like you had to put her in the bottle. She's like, no, I'm not going back in the bottle.
But seriously, but that's literally how I felt. I felt like that was like a prison, like strangling me. And I cried out to God. I said, God, I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know what I'm doing. Take it. Take my life, take my body, take my business, my talents. I don't know what I'm doing. And as I threw myself on the bed, just shaking and crying, I felt my body kind of melt into the bed. And I became one with the bed. And then there was this bright, bright, bright light. And I'm thinking, okay, it's the south of France. The sun is already out. How can it get any brighter? And I'm like squinting, looking for this light. But it wasn't outside. It was in my head.
Wow.
And that's when I found myself being drawn into this light. And I was like, oh, snap. God's answering my prayer. Because I left my body. I went into the light. And I wasn't scared. It was like peace and relief. I'm like, well, I said, take it. Take my life. Here you go. But when I got over to the other side, if you want to call it that, having this complete experience of total oneness, I didn't feel separate anymore. But I had this thought. I was like, you're not separate. Well, then who are you? How are you thinking? And it was like, who am I? That question came up again. And the voice that I heard was, I am that I am. I am whoever I say I am. It's like, so you said you were Drea the artist, and so you are. And then I saw a complete life review. And I saw every single decision that I made from childhood, like in a split second. I understood exactly how all those decisions forced me into that moment of depression. I got it. And it was like, oh, you mean I could have chosen differently? I didn't have to follow society or my mother or my father or even the American Medical Association. I get to choose. I get to say who I am. And in that moment, I saw this picture, and you've actually seen this before with our dear friend, Sister Dr. Jenna of the Brahma Kumaris. You know that beautiful video they show where these little droplets of golden light? I saw that in my vision. I saw that we are like droplets of this light or God consciousness. And that when we come to earth and we incarnate, we take on form, it's up to us to say who we are, not society, not religion, not our parents. It's up to us. And I'm telling you, it was all instantaneous. Like there were no words. I just got this understanding. And it was in that moment that I said, well, if you're telling me I get to choose, then I'll go back. And it was in that moment that I saw this vision of myself. Now, at the time, Foojan, I was 34 years old. I was single. Didn't think I was going to get married, have children, because I'm like, oh, well, it's getting too late. But in this vision, I saw a vision of my future, that I was living on the French Riviera. I was walking hand in hand with a child, which that kind of freaked me out. And of course, you've met my Sienna.
Yes, gorgeous.
And I saw myself healing with my hands.
Wow.
And singing. And I'm like, really, God? You're making me into one of those woo-woo doctors? Well, okay. I mean, everything else looked good. And as I came back into my body, all of that anxiety, depression, totally gone. And that's when I said, okay, I really have got to understand more about spirituality and who we really are. Like, what happened to me? I'd never heard of anyone having an out-of-body near-death experience if they didn't like have a flat line or an accident or something. So that was how I really discovered who I believe I really am.
I got to show you something. Sister Jenna. That's the one you said. She brought it for me. Yeah.
It's that supreme light, that supreme soul that we all come from.
Yeah. It's very interesting that each person really, hopefully, and the ones who do, has a personal journey of experiencing some sort of a consciousness that comes to them at one point in their life. And it seems like most of the time it shows up when we kind of go introspect, going inside and searching and coming to some sort of an urgency. Yeah. I'm sure you found this also, and I see it with myself and everyone else, which is you stop looking externally and really urgently look at something inside, and then something pops where then it connects in different ways, in different formats, whether people envision what you envisioned or envision someone, other beings that come to them or let them know of opening up some conscious world for them. It always comes up for this question for me, and I'm asking you and wanting to your experiences. When we look at from the medical world, from a psychological world about depression and anxiety, there obviously are criterias, and we look at, causality and all of that. But then going through the experience, for example, that you went, or experiences that I've gone through, it's interesting in how a view of ourselves and the world shifts instantaneously. And then doesn't it put a question mark on all of these conversations that we have about depression and anxiety?
Oh, yeah. It definitely did for me, because I grew up in the generation, so I've been a doctor for 20 years. I grew up in that generation that believed that depression, there was probably some biochemical issue and that it's hereditary or your neurotransmitters are out of whack. So I tried antidepressants. I tried amino acid therapy. I tried everything. And it did freak me out that after this spiritual awakening, if you will, all of it was gone. Like, I suffered for decades with debilitating depression. And you're going to tell me that instantaneously it went away? And the way I describe it now is that when we really do connect with our true self, our soul, or even having that divine experience, it does set something right that trumps all of the traditional medical and psychological, research up to date. For me, it definitely set me on a journey of self-discovery. I started looking at various cultures around the world, where a lot of people have these understandings. There are other cultures that don't force their kids, you need to think about your education, get a good, solid job, think about a pension, back in my father's day. There are plenty of cultures that say you got to find out what your heart and your soul resonate with. If you want to be a musician or you want to be a tradesman, then that's what you do. And this understanding that we're more than the body, we're more than our monkey mind, we're more than some diagnosis or disease. And then that led me to, I met a curandera, a healer in Mexico. I went on shamanic rituals. I really just started to explore, I felt like my understanding was too narrow, having just grown up in America. I mean, I've always had this desire for spirituality, and I've always believed that there was more that we are connected to than what I heard people talking about around me. But it has brought into question for me the ability to change matter. I don't want to get all weird on you, but I've seen people in my medical practice who, through a change in their perspective, have healed from diseases that, medical science would say, oh, that's terminal, or, oh, you're going to be on medicine for the rest of your life. And yet I have plenty of people, and I just recently published a book with several stories about people who've had these magical and miraculous transformations. So that's really what drives me today, is I'm on a mission to continue to explore and to share even more, not just the things that happen to me, but other people. Because I think there's more to this world than any of us really recognizes.
Very much. And you teach meditation. You have a system of meditation that you teach, actually.
Exactly.
So that people can look inside, get who they truly are, and then experience it.
Yes, for me, it happened while I was, still on this path with my medical journey. Many people were turned off. Okay, that was, again, 15 years ago. People associated meditation with religion. And I think one of the good things that's happened in the mindfulness movement, and I'm so grateful for all the pioneers who've done research on it, is we could now introduce meditation and mindfulness in a clinical setting.
Yes.
And people weren't being turned off by the religious connotation. And so what I did was just combining my knowledge of positive psychology and breath work and mindfulness, and developed a system that I could teach people, just taking them through a 5-step attunement process that would help them get out of stress or overwhelm or breakdowns, whatever sort of negative emotion, to get them into a neutral standpoint first. Not trying to force them into positivity and bliss, just getting them to neutral, I found could help people who were dealing with anxiety or eating disorders or impulse control situations like gambling or binge eating, and just getting them to neutral and giving them that sense of taking a step back where they could see themselves and become aware of their thinking and their actions. Then if they continue with the 5-step process, they'll eventually get to, tuning into love and compassion and these higher states of consciousness, which change the body and the brain. So I've been teaching the attunement method, that's this meditation process, for about 12 years now. And
wow.
I really find that it helps nearly everyone that tries it. So
where can people find that?
Just
go to
go to attunementmeditation.com, and you can sign up and get some downloads and listen to the meditation guided on your own. You can learn it, sign up for a course with me if you're so inclined. But I put tons of information, tons of free downloads and guided meditations so people can just explore it and experience it totally free.
Oh, that's wonderful. Now, something that you're also doing is conscious branding, where you are working with people. You've had 2 TEDx's, and you're going for the 3rd one.
Yeah.
And you're also training people to be able to do well on TEDx's, and you're branding their books and globally and with who they are. So say more about that, and how come you got to that space from you to branding others?
It came really from moving to France. So after that vision, it took a few years, but after that vision I had, I did conceive my daughter, Sienna, who was with us in India. And it took me a few years, but that vision of me living on the French Riviera came true. And as I started interacting with people here, they thought, wow, this is incredible. How did you get on TV? How did you do all these things, these books? And I just started kind of coaching a few people and doing a little bit of consulting on the side. And then I eventually got hired by the International University of Monaco to teach corporate brand management and positive psychology. So I kind of became known on the French Riviera. And that led into a private consulting business. And little by little, I started being invited on stages in multiple other countries. And a few years ago, I launched the business to help really the soul-inspired entrepreneurs, which tends to be healers and coaches and what we might call light workers, people who really want to do positive stuff in the world. So I just started helping them to really clarify their brand message, like who they really are in alignment with their values, and really how do you communicate that without sounding too woo-woo? Because, I've gone there with you. We've really talked about the woo-woo stuff. But for most of my clients, they're like, we want to just try to get out there gently so that people can still accept us as being credible. And I think my time at Discovery Channel, because, in addition to me being on TV at Discovery Health, I started working with other brands as other doctors and people were coming on the network and, getting their own show. We were developing their brands really from the ground up. So I know how that kind of communication works. So we've been helping people with their TEDx's, like you mentioned. They're keynotes, their workshops. And over the last couple of years, we launched a publishing division. So now we are publishing authors either in group books where each person contributes a story for a chapter, or, several of these books you see behind me are books where a single author is finally getting their chance to have their message shared in the world, but with more of a hand-holding and conscious process than what, even my first book was, with going with a traditional publisher. Mm-hmm. So that's how I got into it, and I absolutely love it. Because it's a transformative journey. I mean, just like for me, when I finally woke up to who I really am and I was able to express it. I mean, it wasn't instantaneous because I still thought people would think I was a weirdo, It was like, it takes a while to get rid of that programming that you have to be, what everybody else wants. But I've noticed now over the years that helping people to clarify who they really are and then to step onto stages or podcasts or radio shows, or publishing their books, they go through a transformation. This idea of self-acceptance, and maybe we'll come back to your question I forgot to answer earlier about self-love. Yeah. For me, self-love is really all about knowing first who you really are, accepting yourself, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and the weird.
And the goofy.
And the goofy, which we have, you and I have a lot of that, don't we? Yeah. Oh, that was something that I just adored finding out about you. Because, of course, you know how it is. I read your bio. And, of course, Sister Dr. Jenna speaks so highly of you. I was like, wow, she's so polished. She's so poised. She's so, And then you are just a silly and goofy person just like me. Yeah.
It's just playfulness. It's like play, Why are we taking life so seriously? It really isn't. I mean, in a millisecond, it can all be gone. In a millisecond, and it's just like, can we just play? Can we have fun with each other and connect and love and just have that fluffy wuzzy kind of thing, which everybody yearns for. But like you said, we have to be credible and we have to do this and we have to be serious, and okay, I'll do that some hours in the day, but can I just play the rest of it?
Yes. And that's really what it's about, when we can just accept that as humans, sometimes we do go through some really hard times. And yes, sometimes we have really tough pasts. We've got some karma that needs settling. And when we can accept that, our humanity, and have that compassion, then we really can love ourselves. Because who you are, really, you're a soul, you're an eternal being, and you're completely lovable. No matter what you've done in the past, including your past lives. The real you is truly, totally, completely lovable.
And I think that this concept of coming to terms with the agreement of the society, building ourself, some people call it the ego, and creating a healthy ego, creating who we are as a cooperative sense of, the integration with other people and what the society wants, but not losing that perspective. And then exploring, coming out of the box, exploring all of the edges of that box, which kind of puts itself into a different world of experiencing an experimental concept of your own self and not just what the society tells you. And I've watched people who have not gone through also the cooperative aspect of, building the success as the society has agreed upon, and they just go and experience themselves. They're also not feeling like they're completely whole and complete, because another side, they're shunned from the society or not feeling that they're successful in their realm. And there's a truth about both side, which is, and as an agreement with the society, we've all come to a sense of we have to live cooperatively within those standards, and yet not losing ourselves in the middle of that act, knowing that that's an act that we have, like you go on TV, be a doctor and act amazingly as that, and yet that's just not all of who Andrea is and Foojan is, and it's something else that is just creating that experience, and be able to have both to create that type of a fulfillment and wholeness.
Yeah, it's all about consciousness, right?
Yeah.
It's when you're aware that this is the agreement of society, and these are the roles I'm playing, that's when I can bring that conscious awareness in and say, okay, I can accept that. Like you said, I can accept being that for a few hours of the day, but I'm going to also embrace the rest of me. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So last minute, what do you want people who are listening to us and viewing us on the video to know about you, to share with them what you want them to know?
Oh gosh, well, we've covered a lot, but I think the ultimate thing is for anyone listening just to know that you are a precious gift. Mm-hmm. You are a gift to this world. And if you have any doubts about that, get one of the books that I've recently published, either my book or these group books, and just reading about some of these other people, myself included, who've come through. You can touch a bit of that magic. Because if it's possible for one person, that means it's possible for the rest of us. And I just firmly believe, as I said, I believe in meditation. There are lots of different ways you can meditate while you're gardening. You don't have to just be sitting in lotus position or, joining us on the mountaintop. But really explore the solitude that meditation can give you. And as I said, you can get a download of my attunement process meditation by visiting attunementmeditation.com. And, I have all sorts of other free goodies. You can visit my other website, AndreaPennington.com. But I would just say, explore and try on for a moment or two today, or a whole hour if you're sassy. Imagine what it would be like if you lived from the perspective that you are here to be a gift, that you really do have something inside of you to share with someone else. And it doesn't even matter if it's big or small. Your presence is the gift. So that's my last little thought on that.
And thank you for bringing the gift of your presence to me and my audience and everybody who's listening and viewing us. And hopefully we will keep going on different mountaintops and retreats and trips together. And love to have you here in Los Angeles whenever you come, and you can come. And again,
I'll be there in a couple of months. So
yay!
Definitely
Yay,
seeing you in the new year. Thank you again,
Absolutely.
Foojan. And I honor you and thank you for all of the good work you're doing for people around the world. Thank you.
Thank you. And for everyone who's listening and viewing us, create an amazing life for yourself and everyone around you. Bye-bye.
The Inner Voice Show is a dialogue between the host and the listeners about their relationships. This show is not an attempt to assess, diagnose, or treat any mental health or illness condition. Please consult your physician, psychiatrist, or psychotherapist for personal matters.